Welcome to the Pint Size Personalization Podcast, brought to you by Johnson Plastics Plus. In this podcast, we talk to the movers and shakers, the influencers and makers who bring personalization to life. We find out what makes them tick and how they became successful in what they do. Today, Jackie Faith and Kylie Lucas are talking with Alexander Selite from Laser Everything. Friends, take it away.
Okay. Good morning, guys. I am here. I have one of our partners on the call today. We work with Laser Everything. You may have heard of them or seen them around on the web. And we're sitting down today with Alex of Laser Everything to talk a little bit about how he got started and plans for the future and everything about laser. So I think your name makes sense. So I also am sitting here with Kylie, and Kylie is our digital marketing specialist, and she is green, brand new to our team. She interned with us, and she just joined us full time a couple weeks ago. So we're gonna let her loose, and her and Alex are gonna chat a little bit about Johnson Plastics Plus. So I will kick off the first question um, and just kind of let you tell us a little bit about yourself, Alex.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Alex over at Laser Everything. We have a YouTube channel. It's got like 66,000 subscribers now, so pretty good. It's not the biggest channel in the world, but we are humble and we do our best to help people out with their laser stuff, especially when it comes to Galvo lasers. We're very heavily focused in Galvo tech. We do gantry stuff, like the OhmTechs and what have you. But it's primarily focused on Galvo stuff because when we started, there was a big vacuum in that area as far as just information goes. So we do our best to fill that void. We're very technical. So if you're looking for like fun holiday projects, we might not be the number one spot to go. But if you're having trouble with like your red dot alignment, we can definitely help you out. So that's the kind of stuff that we focus on over there. We have a massive community across multiple platforms, thousands and thousands of amazing members that come together to help each other and communicate and share, and it's really great. So that's kind of the elevator pitch of who I am. But I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so you said that you guys are pretty well known on YouTube with 66,000 subscribers. What kind of strategies did you use to build your initial customer base?
Well, when we started as a laser engraving shop, not as a YouTube channel. So it was definitely not on my mind that we would even be thinking about YouTube. That was actually something we only got started with because of COVID. The shop had
Okay.
was so slow because of COVID. Um, and I was just bored, so I started making videos.
Mhm.
But before we got completely swept away with the YouTube stuff, we did run a laser engraving shop, and I saw that this question was going to be on. This was the hardest one for me to answer, actually, to think about an answer, because really I ran that business just trying to be as personable as possible with
Mhm.
people. I didn't spend a lot of time doing online marketing or anything, and it's led me to some theories that I can talk about a little bit. But really, it was just like asking people that were happy for reviews and
Okay.
um, just trying to spend as much time with individual people as possible,
Right.
rather than like a mass kind of marketing sort of
Mhm.
strategy. And the people did the advertising for me, especially in our local area. And what I found was when you build a really strong local base, you can then use the revenue that you gain from that to afford the online expansion, so
Right. Right.
I I think a lot of people try to like start with Etsy, or they try to
Mhm.
start with Amazon handmade. And I while that has its benefits and I recognize that, I really think that driving like a really strong local marketing effort and knowing the people
Mhm.
in your area and getting that that revenue coming in from your local area really helps you to be able to spend the kind of money you have to spend in order to be successful online with a more national or even global approach. It costs a lot of money,
Right.
really, really expensive. Advertising is not cheap, and you
Mhm.
have to advertise in today's world. Lasers aren't what they were in 2012. You know, everybody has a laser now. It's a very, very popular thing. And if you want to stand out, and we'll talk about some strategies for that later, I'm
Mhm.
sure in this interview. But if you want to stand out, one of those key pillars is advertising and marketing. And that
Right.
money doesn't just come out of nowhere. So if you don't already have a bank account somewhere absolutely overflowing with cash, you have to generate that. And I think having that local base, that foundation in place to fund your online outreach is really critical. So I would
Mhm.
definitely um, recommend that to people that are just getting started if they don't have other plans. And that is things as simple as like, just like learning people's names, and
Right.
making focus on like what you're doing now, not the stuff that you want to be doing later, and do your absolute best that you can with it. Um, it's like learning math and you have to add before you're doing quadratic equations, right? You
Right.
kind of really focus on the small things, especially in the beginning. And people will brag about you. But
Mhm.
engraving is cool. They like having engraved stuff, and they'll talk about it if they're stoked with the work. So,
Yeah.
um, hopefully that answers the question. I kind of rambled a little bit, but
Yeah, no, all good. Would you say that your online presence was the biggest hurdle you faced in your business, or is there anything else that you'd like to talk about to share with other small business owners?
I mean, I think that having an online presence is certainly a lot of hard work, and it takes a lot of
Right.
learning, especially if you're not used to doing that kind of stuff. Our whole world now on YouTube revolves around that, but it wasn't always that way. And while difficult, I think that the biggest hurdle, which is only going to be an issue for some people, not everybody that's listening
Mhm.
to this, was just like the time away from my family. When we started our business, I had a little kid, and shortly into our business, I had a baby, and then I had another baby, and it's a lot
Mm.
of long nights. It's a lot of work. One thing
Mhm.
that you hear about in the engraving community often is how can I like do X faster? I want X and Y and Z to be faster, and you can do a lot to optimize things in this business, but you it's still just, even if you had everything perfectly optimized, it's just an unbelievable amount of work.
Yeah.
And I think that is definitely the biggest hurdle, is being willing to make sacrifices in order to put the time in that you need to in order to be successful. It just takes a
Mhm.
lot. It's a grind, man. It's hard. Business ownership is hard. Business
Yeah.
administration is hard. Business finance is really difficult. And
Mhm.
all of that takes quiet time in a room alone. You have to really just sit and do that stuff.
Mhm.
And that's hard. And so you have to be ready to do that hard work.
Absolutely. So on the flip side of that, with all that hard work comes, that feeling of when you achieve something that you've been wanting to achieve for a while. So what would you say is your biggest achievement in your business so far?
It's the YouTube channel for sure.
Mhm.
And the YouTube channel, while not directly relevant to the people that are listening to this, because they're running engraving businesses, and I run a social media company now, essentially. Um, the real key win there with the channel was our ability to pivot when things went wrong. And
Mhm.
that, when you do that and you succeed at it, that is an amazing feeling. When we signed our lease on our engraving shop, it was March of 2020. COVID literally
Mm.
was like 2 weeks away, and nobody knew it yet.
Right.
Everything, and we're in New York, so everything was about to get shut down. Meaning like you could not have customers come to your business. And so when we took that and we started like making content and trying to teach people how to do laser engraving, um, the the fact that it worked, it still feels like magic to me that it worked. I don't know how we got away with it, but I think we were just in the right place at the right time. But the fact that we could take our business and pivot to something that did generate revenue, I mean, it saved our business and it saved our family, and I got to continue doing what I enjoy doing.
Right.
That's not the only way that you can pivot, and that's a really important thing to point out. But if you're ever facing failure in your business, uh, sometimes you got to take like a really sharp left turn, um,
Mm.
without throwing everything away, to try to circle back around and get things back together. And being able to do that and then generate this community, this massive community that we have today, where so many people are finding the help that they need and getting the support that they need and being cheered on by their peers, that feeling is just like overwhelmingly positive. So I think that's a really big achievement.
Awesome. Awesome. So now I want to kind of dive into more of the work you do itself. How did you initially hear about Johnson Plastics Plus?
I've been using Johnson Plastics Plus stuff for so long, and whenever we plug you guys, because you guys sponsor our podcast, whenever
Mm.
we plug you, I always make a point to say that I've been using Johnson Plastics Plus products since the very first episode of the Laser Everything ever. In our very
Yeah.
first YouTube episode, we engraved some Romark Naturals, and
Mm-hmm.
even before that, uh, we found Johnson Plastics Plus because of Romark, where I was an apprentice before I did this full time. So
Okay.
I worked for another guy. Shout out Michael Mullins, Laser Engraving 911, another great YouTube channel if you
Mm.
haven't already checked Michael's channel out. Michael taught me everything I know about lasers. We kind of learned together.
Okay.
Um, and when we came to a point where we needed that kind of like flat stock product line,
Mm-hmm.
um, Romark was the best performing by far. It certainly wasn't the least expensive, but it was amazing and it was consistent and it was really, really easy to use when we had no idea what we were doing. And
Right.
so we've been using Romark since, I mean, like my apprenticeship days before I even owned a laser business. So it's been in my life for like a really, really long time. And of course, over the years, we spread out and started collecting other things from Johnson Plastics Plus, and now half my shop is full of your stuff. So it gets out of control very, very quickly
Yeah.
due due to your selection. But I've been using your products for a long time, long
Awesome.
time.
Awesome. So you may have already kind of answered this, but what factors do you consider when selecting substrates for engraving, like sheet material? Because I know
Yeah,
you said you really like our Romark sheet. What do you kind of look for when you're shopping for products?
we definitely touched on it, but I can go a lot more in depth on this topic
Mm.
too. I mean, the consistency is a huge thing. It's
Absolutely.
a massive thing.
Mm.
Every single time that I order a sheet of Romark Naturals and it's like, Black Galaxy, I know exactly what's going to come in the mail. I
Mm-hmm.
know that the thickness of the top layer is going to be exactly what it needs to be, and the thickness of the whole sheet is going to be exactly what it needs to be. I don't have to think at all ever about the settings that I'm using. Every single
Mm-hmm.
time, it's exactly the same. And that's something that you don't get everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really big problem, and it's not something that gets talked about uh, far often enough. Another one is just safety, just the ability to have such a wide selection of like laser safe materials and having
Mm-hmm.
that explicitly stated and taking that out of the equation makes things so much easier. So that's something I'm always looking for, because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people that buy blanks online just kind of buy them and you hope for the best. You're like, I hope this doesn't poison me.
Right. Right.
You know, and that's not really something that you have to worry about on Johnson Plastics Plus. You guys have that icon system on your
Yes.
website.
Yes.
So easy. It's so easy
Absolutely.
to use.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is very, very easy too. And I won't say cost, because cost is not the first thing on my list, but a reasonable price. You know what I mean? Like having
Yeah.
something reasonably priced when you are able to leverage things like consistency and safety on a regular basis. I'll pay. You guys could charge me double for Romark, and I'd probably still pay it. But
Yeah.
the pricing certainly helps. So
Yeah. And consistency, I'm sure, with being a small business is huge. You got to
yeah,
know
yeah.
what product you're getting.
I mean that you are really good at keeping things in stock too, which I appreciate. So I one of the things that I hate is like I'll find a really nice knife on AliExpress, and then 3 weeks later when I need more of them, the shop has just disappeared off the face of the planet.
Right. Right.
And you guys have kept a lot of the vast majority of your stock, flat or otherwise, in stock the entire time my business has
Yeah.
existed. And so being able to like go back and find those things repeatedly year after year, especially for things like annual projects where you need them once a year,
Right.
every single year, I know they're going to be there, and that's really helpful.
Awesome. That's great to hear. So, do you have a favorite product that you've purchased from Johnson Plastics Plus or Romark in
It's
general?
it's got to be, yeah, it's got to be Romark for sure.
Uh-huh.
It's such a well engineered and refined product. And
Mm.
it's I can't think of any way that I would make it better. So that's why it's my favorite, because it's
Yeah.
perfect. And if there isn't, if I have a sheet of Romark in front of me and it isn't exactly what I need, you have exactly what I need on the website, and I just have to go look for it. What if I have an 1/8 inch sheet of the European gold in front of me on
Hmm.
black, and that isn't gonna work for this project? Oh, look, there's flecks of brass. Like
Right.
there's
Right.
so many different kinds, and they're so good at so many specific things. There's always an answer, and a huge part of this business, a lot of what we do on the channel is like weird stuff. We're
Hmm.
engraving like urns, or we're like cutting an inlay for a guitar or something, and I don't think that's really representative of the bulk of the business that we do. The
Hmm.
bulk of the business is like put a name or a date on a thing and ship it. We're like make
Right.
800 name tags, or like we need 300 labels engraved for something. I mean, that's like where Romark shines, and it's always available. So
Hmm. Awesome.
being able to lean on that is key for sure. So definitely my favorite.
Great. How do you see the future of engraving in the personalization industry evolving, and what opportunities do you foresee in your business or just in general?
Um, Engraving's obviously exploded, and I think that a lot of people feel like the market is saturated.
Hmm.
Um, I agree with that to a point, but I feel like and we talk about this a lot on the podcast actually. I feel like it's saturated with mediocre work. Um,
Hmm.
I think the future of laser engraving for people is going to be specializing in things. It's going to be like picking a thing and doing it really, really well, like better than anybody else.
Right.
Up until up until recently, you've been able to just own a laser and just shove stuff under it, and just the
Hmm.
fact that you have access to the machine makes it special. It makes it novel. And I don't think that laser ownership is novel anymore. So you could look at it as a dark future, or you could look at it as an opportunity to uh, hone a skill and create a craft. The laser itself, I think, used to be the product
Hmm.
that the engraving shops were selling, and now it's a tool, and you have to make a product with it. And
Right.
so that's a really important distinction, and it's hard to shift your mindset that way, because again, up until recently, and I'd say maybe like 18 months to 2 years ago, up
Hmm.
until recently, you could just have a laser, and just having it meant anything that it produced was going to be money. And
Mm.
I think you really have to use the laser as a tool in order to generate a product, and that is the thing that needs to be sold rather than your ownership of the machine. So I think that's where things are heading, especially with like all the X tools. You see like the little Galvo diodes they sell now. Anybody can
Hmm.
have them just like sitting on their desk next to their workstation. The technology is so accessible and it's become so democratized, and that's a good thing generally.
Hmm.
We see more competition, prices come down, more people have access to them. I'm all for that stuff, but it does mean that you have to be more creative and
Yeah.
you have to make more of an effort.
Hmm.
So with those things come a lot of opportunities for you as someone with the skills to make it happen or the drive to attain the skills. Can rise to the top, if you want to put
Hmm.
it that way, and succeed that way. So I think that's kind of where we're headed anyway.
Yeah. Okay. And just one last question to kind of wrap up here. Just since you've been in the industry for a while, what are some of the key advantages of engraving over other personalization methods based off of your experience? Because it seems like you have quite a bit of experience here.
Yeah,
And I'm gonna hop in and add tack onto that question, talking head over here,
Mm.
is we work a lot with CO2 laser engraving, but can you also talk a little bit about what you like about the different types of engraving that there are out there, like galvo, diode, all that kind of stuff too?
absolutely. There's one of the nice things about lasers is that there are lasers for every job.
Hmm.
Just like there's a row mark for every job, there is a laser for every material out there, and you have to know which ones are the right tools for the right jobs. And that's stuff that we talk about over on our channel. Um, but the availability of laser now, I mean, you used to have a multi-million dollar business and you would buy $200,000 laser systems that cost $1,500 now. It's
Hmm.
wild. That's just in like the last 20 years. We've kind of gone through that revolution in availability. We talked a little bit about that earlier, the democratization of the technology. The accessibility of laser now is part of what makes it so great. Obviously there's benefits to laser. There's no consumables for the most part. You plug it into the wall and it creates stuff out of nothing. I mean, that's amazing. Whereas, when you're working with just about anything else, you're loading it with some kind of like ink, or there's a cartridge or some kind of consumable that you have to maintain. And with lasers, you turn the thing on and it just generates, and that's awesome. You also, if we're talking about galvo lasers specifically, I'm assuming most people listening to this know what a gantry laser is, where you've got the big head swinging back and forth. You have the size capabilities there, obviously those big 28 by 20 beds, but they can be slow, especially if you're working on smaller items. Galvo laser speed is just mind-bendingly fast, uh, and that is it's something that's still, like, when the customers do come back and they get a glimpse of like a galvo laser operating, their brains just melt a little bit, like you
Hmm.
can see it in their eyes. They kind of like glaze over and there's like a little sparkle, and they just want to watch it over and over again because it's like magical. It's like a
Hmm.
magic thing that we're doing, like we're waving a wand. um but yeah, I mean, just the portability on galvo lasers nowadays. There's a laser out there. It's a 30-watt fiber laser, I think, and I can pick it up and just like whole thing, galvo scan head, the tower, the main body, everything, and I can just hold it over my head. Like, that's how small it is. I could take it anywhere. I can literally plug it into a battery bank and run it off a battery bank. That's wild. I'm not doing that with anything else. And so, yeah, I mean, lasers, just, they can and are everywhere. They're super inexpensive. There's no overhead except for the power that you're purchasing for it. They're extremely, extremely versatile. Especially, I mean, even now, just to touch on like the different types of lasers, we have CO2 lasers, very, very common. It's like the heat ray that you just blast at anything. But fiber, being able to chew into metal and ablate metal away, a miracle, magical again. And now we have the UVs. The UV ultraviolet lasers are so cheap compared to what they were just even 2 or 3 years ago. They were 5 times the cost, and they're so inexpensive now, relatively. And ultraviolet can mark anything. You can do glass. You can cut glass with an ultraviolet laser. You can do glass. You can do plastics that you can't do on other machines safely. There's just so much out there. It's extremely overwhelming, and there's not enough time to cover it all. But laser is very exciting. It's always changing. It's always evolving. Everything's getting smaller and cheaper constantly. There's nothing not to like about lasers.
Absolutely. Yeah, so just kind of last thing here. So can you kind of restate your social channels for other people to kind of check out your work and see what you're up to? And we'll make sure to put them in this podcast as well.
Yeah. I'm always down for some shameless self-promotion. We've got obviously the YouTube channel is where you want to be. It's at Laser Everything on YouTube. Join us over there. Watch some of our content. One of the things that's great about Laser Everything is that we don't have a course we're trying to sell you. There's nothing that you need to sign up for. We're entirely like voluntarily donated to, I guess. It's a weird phrasing. Our only sponsorship we've ever had is Johnson Plastics Plus sponsoring our podcast, the Laser Source Podcast, which you can find on all major podcasting platforms and again on the YouTube channel. But yeah, all of our content on YouTube is published 100% for free for everybody all the time. There's nothing behind a paywall. There isn't a weird like sales funnel that you're going to get funneled down. It's just the information's there. You can also check it out, and we have links to all of these too everywhere. Lasereverything.net is loaded with amazing free tools for people. We have a massive, I want to venture to say the biggest database online, asterisk. That's a strong maybe, but I'm pretty sure of laser sources. So if you have questions about laser sources and what their capabilities are, we have a massive database there for you. We maintain a laser safety material database. We have a laser project database that anybody in the community can upload projects to. We have laser settings databases, so anybody in the community can upload laser settings for their specific machine to that database, and then anyone can access them. This is all free. And we also have laser settings starter packs available that have been pre-converted for every lens and every wattage of fiber laser, CO2 laser, and diode and UV. I think we have some UV stuff in there now too. It's just a massive library of free information. So go check all. Yeah, just go absorb that. And if you have questions, we have a Discord, we have a Facebook group. You can find those things online. They're easy to locate. There are not a lot of things called Laser Everything. And we have a massive community available to help you kind of sift through all of it, because it is a very big data dump, but the resources are there, and we want you guys to succeed. So come visit us over at Laser Everything.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. It's really important that in this industry, especially, we all kind of learn from each other, which is the main reason why we started this podcast. So thank you for being on our podcast, and we will talk to you soon. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Oh, no, I'm just really glad that you guys are doing this, and thank you so much for having me on today. This was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Well, thank you.
You've been listening to the Pint Size Personalization Podcast with your hosts Jackie Faith and Kylie Lucas, brought to you by Johnson Plastics Plus. Please remember to like and subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And for more information on the thousands of customizable products we have available, visit jpplus.com.